Hey, Grand Ascension, everybody. It's me, Baby Girl Slaughter. Niecy Denise, back to do a short reading over Tesla and the Cabbage Patch Kids. Shout out to Guy Anderson. Did a fabulous job in putting this work together. I think he was came up with this during the lockdown, the Great Plandemic, Plan, sitting out here, it's probably about 6:30, I think. 6:30, between 6:30 and 7. And as you can see, I turned on the lights and I was going to light a little fire and just sit out here and read. And I thought, well, what better way is to spend some time with you guys this morning? So let's just get right into it, okay? We left off, okay? We left off, we read part, or chapter 6, which is the fire, floods, and the comets of 1811. And where we're going to start off today is chapter 7, the Napoleonic Civil and World Wars. Okay, so what we're doing is we're building a foundation as to state how history was rewritten, who's in control, why things are the way they are, and seeing how they've rewritten history and just putting the puzzle pieces together to form educated uh, an educated alternative version of events than what we've been given, right? You guys hear the crows in the background? All right, let's get into it. It says, it feels like we have always lived with war. So true. I was taught about World War I and World War II at school. Then we had the Falklands conflict and the constant troubles in Northern Ireland. I have also worked with several people that were sent to fight in the Middle East, ultimately under false pretenses, and to unknowingly assist in the destruction of civilizations, then take control of countries we had no right or legal reason to invade. Many people still live in areas where the civil war is still going on today. I want to point out one thing, and I haven't read this, so I'm reading along with you, this particular chapter. I want to point you guys to Facts Are Facts, Benjamin H. Friedman, where he talks about how Britain and Germany, at the guise of the Zionists, went into America because at first America was pro-Germany. Okay, they went in, did some kind of deal, and if America got involved with Germany, they also were promised, not America, but the Zionists were promised that they would get Palestine, okay, for a new home state. So I want to bring that up. I want to make sure that you guys remember. I read this a while ago, and so did Chief Ribble. Shout out to Chief Ribble because he is the one that truly lit the fire under me, okay, to where I want to start reading and researching and looking at certain aspects. So I'm sharing information with you. We really need to look at how the state of Israel was created and who created it, right? Ashkenazis, those who say they are, but are not, all right? There's a certain demographic. It's not all of them. It's just a certain demographic. So this is where we get that. We're putting the puzzle pieces together. And so we really need to look a little bit more closely at the Chazars, okay? Curmier did an excellent breakdown of the Chazars. I think he had like 33 videos. So if you've got months to really start hammering through and studying, I'm telling you, you need to go look at Don't Mention the Chazars. And he's over on Patreon. He's here on YouTube, but he's censored, okay? So I just want to bring that up, okay? So you've got Zionists who wanted Israel. And so in order for Great Britain and, for Great Britain to win the war, because Germany had pretty much already won, right? They went and got us involved. But you got to remember, Everything was under reconstruction, right? And they want to say this when this country was founded. No, it's when it was repurposed and rewritten. It was the whitewashing of history, the fall of Tartary, and them coming over here, seven countries bum rushing the United States and fighting us, my people, the original people. Okay, so you got to remember that, right? All right, so I just wanted to call that out. Okay, so let me just read. So it says, many people still live in areas where civil war is still going on today. But what is the real reason for starting a war? Is it to ultimately restore peace? Is it greed? Or is it something more sinister? We now know that the Iraq invasion had nothing whatsoever to do with the weapons of mass destruction. However, was it actually about stripping and controlling assets like oil? I certainly thought that until I started researching Tartaria and the reset in 1776. If you stop to think about it for a moment, the parasites that control this world are wealthy far beyond our imagination, let alone reach. So why would they want even more? Is it likely that every war in the Middle East has simply been down to taking control of the oil and the poppy fields? The poppy or the Papyrus semiferian produces opium, a powerful narcotic whose derivatives include morphine, codeine, heroin, and oxycodone. Whilst it is true that to control these two vital components of the modern world will create even more wealth as well as power. They already own and control almost everything that enters in the Western civilization anyway. So why would they flatten Iraq, Afghanistan, if it was for just to make a few more dollars? Okay. I believe that the invasion of Iraq at the hands of the war criminals like George W. Bush and his puppet Tony Blair actually happened for an entirely different reason. And this reason might surprise you. Okay. It says, for decades, if not centuries, people have searched what was once Mesopotamia and Babylon, looking for proof of the existence of Gilgamesh, the first and most important ruler of the place where human civilization began. Gilgamesh is mentioned throughout the Book of Giants and was killed by the Great Flood, a demigod and a Sumerian king who reigned for 126 years. He possessed superhuman strength and is often depicted carrying a lion under his arms. The Epic of Gilgamesh is considered to be one of the greatest masterpieces of cuneiform literature. I don't think that I've read that to you guys. I may just pull it out because I have it in the office, and we may read it at some point. I think I've read excerpts from when I was over on Facebook Live and in the group that I founded, the Ancient Astronaut Theorist, The Real Truth, because I was really geared toward these otherworldly beings and finding out why things were the way they were, right? So everything's interconnected. So we may just read a couple of chapters of Gilgamesh, okay? So it says, copies of the story have been found in Israel, Samaria, and Turkey with references to him in Greek and Roman literature. The son of Logabandia, the king of Iraq, and Ninsun, the wise cow goddess, he was thought to be half Anunnaki and half human. Yeah, he is. And his family comes from beyond the ice walls. That's why he has the powers he has. In early 2003, archaeologist Jörg Fassbinder of the Bavarian Department of Historical Monuments in Munich knew he had finally found the right site to excavate, and work began. Within just a couple of months of the dig, he uncovered the entrance to Gilgamesh's tomb. If Fassbinder was right, this would confirm that a superior race once dominated our planet and had, as documented by great minds like Freddie Silva, that we are in fact the creation of a superior race of people that arrived on this planet some 400,000 years ago. Now, this is widely known. I know some of you may have a issue with this because you say, oh, okay, she's going down the alien route, but you got to understand what I've read to you this far, that there are otherworldly intelligences. And shout out to Middle Nation with his video. Yes, well, his video was about 5 days ago, but I reposted it, I think, over here on YouTube. I don't think I reposted on Facebook, or if I did, it was private. But he was basically saying how the West here, this Western civilization, has been influenced by the jinn. The jinn are extraterrestrials. They want to say the jinn are demons, devils, etc., etc., etc. Basically, they're otherworldly beings. Just call it for what it really is. They could be interdimensional beings. They could be disembodied souls. Disembodied souls meaning they were part of the uh, Nephilim creation, and their bodies dissipated and they're just left to roam the earth. And this is what you get. So you have a mixture of plasma beings. What you don't understand is that this world that we live in was pretty much an archetype of a hodgepodge of different extraterrestrial factions, either seeding people here, all right, coming here themselves and being caught up in all of the BS. And over 6 to 7 resets, you've got all of these things going on. Plus, you have the creation of, quote unquote, this human avatar template. Now, not all of us were created. I'm just going to tell you. All right. So don't think that every single person that was seated here was created here. Some of us actually came here, all right, to start over or to start a new life. And this was never supposed to be like this. So I have to stress that point. Okay. All right. So let me get into it. So if Fansbender was right, this would confirm that a superior race was dominated our planet and had documented by great minds like Freddie Silva that we, in fact, are the creation of a superior race of people that arrived on this planet some 400,000 years ago to mine gold. Not only this, but these people, known as the Anunnaki, not only created us to mine for them, but were also the ancient pharaohs of Egypt left behind technology, architecture that far exceeds what we have and can produce today. Okay, always about the tech. When they find something, what do? They take it into the military and then they weaponize it. They don't release it to the people for the betterment of humanity, for the lack of a better word. Okay, so it says, imagine for a moment the impact that would be caused if it was proven that Darwin's theory of evolution was wrong and the Old Testament, albeit heavily doctored, was the true story of the dawn of man, and the gods were Enki and Enlil, sons of Anu, the great leader of the Anunnaki from Sirius B and Orion's belt. Fassbender discovered a 12-foot giant of a man with bright red hair draped in gold in the most ornate and incredibly detailed tomb. I don't want to say definitely it was the grave of Gilgamesh, but it looks very similar to that described in Epic. Fassbender told the BBC World Service's Science in Action program, within days of discovery came the terrorist attack on the Twin Towers, later to be known as 9/11. Okay, so that was they discovered Gilgamesh's body several days before those planes hit the tower, supposedly, and all hell broke loose here in the U.S. and kicked off the Iraqi war, right? At the time, nobody stopped to question how 2 airliners could be hijacked and flown into these iconic buildings, nor did anyone pay attention to how they collapsed exactly the same way as a controlled explosion. Chief Red Wolf was there. He saw the whole thing. He was in ordinances. So he, as well as several other military people, witnessed this. Okay. And if you spent half your life or most of your life in the military, special ops, all of you guys, anybody sees this video that's been in the military, all right, you guys know what a controlled demolition is, or controlled ordinances. I mean, not ordinances, but a controlled explosion or a planned attack. You know what that is, right? So we even overlook what the third tower fell, despite nothing flying into it, nor do we openly discuss the fact that at a single head of any bank or member of any of the board of directors or major shareholders were in the buildings at the time. Only the employees. However, it was decided that it was an action of Osama bin Laden, a person unknown to almost everyone prior to this event, founding member of also the previously unheard of group Al-Qaeda. which U.S. helped fund. I'm not even going to get into that. Funding the terrorists and playing war games and using our men and women to go in there and to fight a war for no other reason than for alien tech and artifacts and greed. Okay? I always say, let those suits go in and fight each other and keep us out of it. Just going to say. Everything we've been taught is a lie, you guys. So on the 20th of March, 2003, Iraq invasion began, and one of the first targets to be successfully hit was the tomb of Gilgamesh. Wiped from the face of the earth, any possibility, chance of linking this man to the Anunnaki and the Epic of Gilgamesh was gone. With regard to the Epic of Gilgamesh, the tablet was not actually inside the tomb, but was found several years earlier in a cave in Turkey. In July 2021, a federal court in the America verified that a rare ancient artifact known as the Gilgamesh Dream Tablet was seized by authorities. Along with the tomb of Gilgamesh, museums were also destroyed, containing supporting archaeological evidence. Moreover, American troops were seen entering and looting many of these rare items beforehand. Next, let's go back to November 18th, 1803, and the start of the mass genocide of the Tartarian people, better known as the Napoleonic Wars. The Napoleonic Wars are often described as separate conflicts, each termed after the coalition that fought against Napoleon. These are the Third Coalition, 1803 to 1806, the Fourth, 1806 to 1807, the Fifth in 1809, the Sixth in 1813 to 1814, the Seventh in 1815, the Peninsula War in 1807 to 1814, and finally the French invasion of Russia in 1812. Napoleon conquered Egypt, Belgium, Holland, a large part of Italy, Austria, most of Germany, Poland, and Spain. He then took control with the help of the parasites, right? The most of Europe, Western Europe, and finally Russia. But was Napoleon actually responsible? Did he even exist? Or could he just have been a loyal servant to the parasites that took the blame? I think that's literally the plausibility of it. It is quite possible that he, like several other people in our history books, is just a name given to an event as a leader or a creator as a means to an end. Therefore, blaming someone for the evil, vile behavior of secret or hidden group of people, a scapegoat of sorts. From the previous chapter, you might recognize that these countries also experienced the comet bombing, as well as the fires and the floods. It is my belief, from the research I have done, that these wars served just one purpose: to kill the Tartarians that survived the previous catastrophic events. The death toll of these conflicts are of the astronomical proportions. Now let's list off how many people died. Russia, 500,000 killed, 200,000 displaced. Egypt, 300,000 killed. Poland and Italy, 500,000 killed. Britain, 300,000 killed. 200,000 died from disease and accidents. Germany and Austria, 500,000 killed. Spain and Portugal, 700,000 killed. They had to kill off the original people of the land, you guys. I'm telling you, it was melanated people that were here. And I'm not saying that to do a race war. I'm just simply saying, if you start looking at the facts and you start looking at the paintings and the pictures, and they've repainted a lot, but they didn't do it all. They didn't get rid of all of the evidence. Well, albeit was it lazy, albeit was people hiding stuff. I'm just telling you, Russia, Putin released from his vaults the Russian icons. And there's a book that's probably like $1,500, but has the paintings of the original icons that were melanated. All right. So you put the puzzle pieces together and you understand these numbers were for melanated people. Now, we did have so-called crown color white people here, but not on the scale that we have today. Because you got to remember, we as in the autochthonous female, We carry the Eve gene so we can create all of the races. All right. That's all I'm saying. So when you start to look at the magnitude, the brevity of the situation, how many people were actually executed, they had to get rid of the people that were previously here. And, like Chief said, here in the Americas, you had so-called quote unquote crown color, let's say white for the video, people that were here. Do you not know that there were other so-called white folks that came here? And they tried to persuade these people to join forces. And when they said no, they killed them first. They hung and lynched so-called white people, killed other white people, strung them up and hung them and killed them first before they started executing us. They didn't want the bullshit and they wasn't going to join. So some of them fought alongside with us and they died with us. I'm just telling you, y'all need to do your research. All right. And you'll see it if you do it. So it says, in total, they estimated the Napoleonic Wars killed 3.5 million soldiers and another 3 million civilians. As a result, this left a great deal of children without their fathers, mothers, or both, and I will explain exactly what happened to them later in detail. Napoleon and the parasites' reign of terror, it ended in Waterloo, or at least this is what we have been led to believe, but it never actually ended. I'm just going to say that, okay? Personally, I think it was just the end of that particular saga, and with the War of 1812 underway in America, the British were now busy destroying the Tartarian Empire, the Moors, and the indigenous peoples across the Atlantic, okay? The War of 1812 lasted 3 years and had, as with the Napoleonic Wars, the sole purpose of wiping the old world and its people off the map. Millions of acres were taken, occupied. Washington alone was almost flattened, but with the exception of one particular building, the Franklin House. In the book, he calls it the White House, but it's known as the Franklin House because melanated people live there, which was from Tartarian Empire. And it was called the Franklin House. And when they reconstructed it, which some of our people did survive, okay, they helped to rebuild everything. And they helped these parasites, the Cabbage Patch babies, and the clones that they seeded with the World's Fairs, taught them how to construct, how to build, and basically set up Indian training camps for them to assume the positions of the people here in the West. Just going to say it. So they didn't destroy the White House. They kept that. They renamed it. They didn't destroy the Franklin House. They renamed it the White House and they rebuilt it. It's hardly a surprise to anyone reading the book that nobody recorded exactly how many of the true forefathers of America were killed. And they were melanated. I'm just going to tell you. However, because that's not what we've been told, but I'm telling you, if you read, you'll figure it out. However, we do know that the genocide of the indigenous peoples didn't end there. Many wars and conflicts and even pandemics followed. The parasites being responsible for 3 million Amerindians from the West Indies as well as Central and South America dying from smallpox. There has been and still are far too many civil wars to list, and most appear to have the same cause and effect. The parasites want to take control and ownership of a country or region, so its citizens stand up and defend themselves. Here are a few that are followed by the resets of 1776. I omitted World War I and World War II, as I will go into a little more detail about these two false wars. I'm going to read them really quick. 1808, Spanish-American War of Independence, 1.5 killed. 1810, Colombian War of Independence, 400,000 killed. 1810, Venezuelan War of Independence, 228,000 killed. 1810, the McAfee War of Independence, 2 million. 1821, Greek War of Independence, 170,000 killed. 1850, Taiping Rebellion, 70 million killed. 1853, Crimean War, 615 killed. 1854, the Mayo Rebellion, 4.9 million killed. 1857, Indian Rebellion, 1 million killed. 1861, the American Civil War, which was fake, 1 million killed. Okay. This is the name that they gave it, but they were going in to exterminate the original peoples all around the world. 1862, Duncan Revolt, 20 million killed. 1864, the Paraguayan War, 1.2 million killed. 1899, the Philippine American War, 254,000 killed. 1910, the Mexican Revolution, 3.5 million killed. 1917, Russian Civil War, 12 million killed. Add up all those numbers of how many people that is. As mentioned, these are just a few of the civil wars that have been taking place since the last reset, and many more continue still to this day. If you Google, now I ain't gonna say Google search because Google's locked down. If you use other internet search browsers out there and see the conflicts go by continent, still what is happening to this very day. While we live here in America, drinking Starbucks, driving our BMWs and Teslas, going into office every day or work every day, taking vacations, weddings, births of children, soccer, going out nightclubs, going, to different countries, being passport boys, while people are constantly being raped, children are being murdered, and wars still continue. But we think since 9/11, we're safe, and that's never going to happen here. It's because our ancestors have endured the tragedy, but it's going to come back around. That's all I'm going to say. We're not going to escape what's coming. And many of you are not prepared for what is coming. This is why I'm reading this stuff, so you have a better understanding. And I can hear somebody saying, why do we care about these people? Because they have passed. They've already lived their life and they're gone. I'm simply telling you that you need to look at every bit of information out there and analyze it with critical eyes so you can see what has transpired, because that is the continuation of what will be. All right. I'm going to cut it here because I'm going to keep this at 30 minutes because I want to upload this on a couple of platforms. And I'm going to come back and we're going to rehash the rest of this chapter. And I'm going to read something from Jamil Shamsheed-Din. All right. I'll talk to you guys in a few minutes. Thanks for joining me and stay tuned. We're going to continue.